You don't hear Sonia Dada anywhere except here.
Probably true.
You like Sonia Dada, don't you, though?
Sure.
Do you?
I don't know.
Or are you just telling me that?
Smile and nod.
I don't know.
And now we're getting the stare down.
Do you like Sonia Dada, Katie?
Katie
Yeah.
has to lie.
Yeah, sure.
Turn this up. This is good. It's while I'm gonna tear this guy a new one. So, a guy wrote me and said, "Dude, I got to call you out on the window commercial you just pitched. You left the listeners assuming you have new windows or you are soon to be getting them. It's okay to say your windows are totally fine and you don't need new ones. You have a show of integrity. Let's keep that going." And I wrote him back. I said, "Let me tell you something, dude. First of all, don't write me questioning my integrity. Secondly, when I tell you I'm doing something, I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. So when I say that Sam is putting together a window bid for me for the new Beechworth windows, that's happening. I'm not saying anything that isn't true. So the assumption somehow that I'm just telling you that crap and it's not happening is outrageous." The guy signs up, "Love the show." Well, if you love the show, don't sit there and write me and tell me I'm full of crap. When I'm telling you, when I say I'm doing something, I'm doing it. When I say I buy something, I have bought it. When I say I'm getting a bid on it, I'm getting a bid on it. When I say I have it, I have it. When I say I'm a customer, I'm a customer. Just assume that's the case from now on into perpetuity. Thank you very much, Chris Wallace. Get me started. It's so funny. Sometimes people will ask me, Chris Wallace, like, when you say that you are a customer of Mid-America Arms, do you really get your guns from Mid-America Arms? Like, I would never say I did if I didn't.
Boy, you're ticked off today. I'll be very careful with you.
Well, listen, you know what? One thing I absolutely covet is my integrity, and especially as it relates to my advertisers on the show. So I'm always very, very, it's always important to me to convey the fact that what I tell you is the truth. Looks like you are.
I'm not, don't get in an argument with me. I'm not having said anything.
Listen, Chris Wallace, let me tell you something.
Wow.
Oh, man, I'm just kidding you. Hey, so this has been a very interesting week, especially this Romney drama, and I've been dying to get your opinion about what you really think is happening here. I know nobody really knows, but what do you think?
I was going to say, but don't let that stand in the way. Look, here's the honest answer about all of this stuff. Nobody knows. I'm not even sure people in the transition know. There's certainly some things that I've never seen before, and I'm not sure, frankly, I approve of, like Kellyanne Conway bashing Romney. You know, if it's an outsider wanting to bash Romney, that's fine. You know, there's plenty of reason to feel that he went after Trump, and why would you want to put him in the Trump administration, particularly with the premier job of Secretary of State? When somebody is a senior transition advisor and they're, running him down, I know that Kellyanne says that she got permission from Trump, but it's just weird, don't you think? I mean, it would be like somebody in your staff trashing another colleague or a potential colleague or something. It'd sort of be like, let's keep this in the family. In terms of what he's going to do, whether this is all just a show, whether he's trying to make him grovel, whether he's going to pick him to be the Secretary of State, who knows? I don't know, and I'll bet a lot of the people in the senior positions of the administration don't know that he's weighing this, and he'll decide when he decides.
Well, that's why it's so amazing to me, because I know that Newt Gingrich, I know that Huckabee, and I know that, and Sarah Huckabee certainly has been involved in the campaign, and I know that Kellyanne Conway, they're all close to the Trump campaign. So the idea that somehow they're all going rogue and attacking Romney.
No, I don't think they are.
Yeah,
I mean and Kellyanne said that she wasn't, that she went and she got permission. I still don't think it's particularly good form, because let him make his choice. And obviously he's taken it seriously. He's had 2 meetings with him. But in any case, it's curious, and I suspect it's going to just continue this way. He's going to do it his way, and it's going to be different than certainly anybody in modern presidential history, anybody in my experience. I can't speak for Martin Van Buren, but we're just going to have to get used to it. And it's one of the reasons I will say, like, our audiences are, and I'm sure this is true for you guys too, are ginormous because people can't get enough of it. They're so fascinated. It's not the usual script. Trump is doing it the Trump way, and we're all going to have to get used to it because he's the president in the next 4 years.
Yeah, there's no question about that, and he seems to be, his own guy. And although, how are you impressed so far, without editorializing, obviously, with his?
Yeah, but give me your opinion without editorializing. I think. Well, it's an interesting mix of people, and here's the one thing I think I can say without editorializing is. And I actually kind of side with him on this. People are saying, well, he said he was going to drain the swamp, and he talked about how the game in D.C. and on Wall Street is rigged, and yet he's picked a bunch of insiders, whether they're from D.C. or Wall Street. But to a certain degree, I think, you can't have somebody who's a complete outsider, somebody who doesn't know how the system works, and then ask him to shape it up. You need somebody who's an insider because they know all the tricks and all the traps. And in the end, the key isn't going to be whether or not the guy's a billionaire, whether he came from Wall Street or didn't come from Wall Street. The key is going to be the policies. So let's wait and see. And he says he's going to do all these dramatic things in terms of changing the way Washington works, in terms of changing the way Wall Street works. I will say, and, there's an argument both sides of this, but, for him to get involved and suddenly Carrier to reverse his position, the air conditioning company in Indiana, and keep 1,000 jobs there, I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought it was a real sign that, people called it a deal of sorts, but it seemed to me that it was more like, well, what he promised to do, which was reduce corporate taxes as well as deregulate to a certain degree. And I understand that Indiana might have thrown something in there, so maybe that constituted the word deal.
Well, here's the concern, and it's a legitimate concern, and that is, well, if companies see that President Trump is going to get involved and, in effect, pick winners and losers, then why wouldn't the next company say, hey, we're about to, we're going to take 10,000 jobs out of Michigan and, and then see what they can get for it. And that's the danger, is it starts a kind of a gold rush of companies threatening and then getting negotiations and deals with the incoming administration. Look, we'll have to wait and see. But the fact that he didn't just sit there and let it happen, and that he got involved in it, bottom line, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. So now, when it comes to like what you're trying to figure out for the show on Sunday, I guess
that's a nice way of saying you don't have anything booked yet, do you?
But see, as I've always maintained, no, I think that's a good thing. It's Thursday.
Well, you said by somebody who doesn't have to book the show. It's not terrible at this hour on Thursday. By this hour on Friday, we'll be sweating bullets. I mean, look, I'll tell you what some of the things we're trying to do. Obviously, we would like the top person we can get from the Trump transition, because there's an awful lot to talk about, whether it's, the process or who's going to get the job, or what about these allegations of draining the swamp, or Trump now saying he's going to hold a news conference on December 15th and really set up some kind of firewall between himself and his company. That's going to be hard to do. It isn't like you take stocks and put them in a blind trust and you don't know what the trustee does, whether he buys or sells the stocks. I mean, if it's a building that's got Trump slapped all over it, you kind of know what's going to happen. If suddenly it's been sold to the Chinese, you figure Trump's going to be aware of that because it'll be on page one of the paper.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, let me ask you this, though. Do people ever really, I mean, has a swamp ever actually physically been drained before, do you know?
Well, yeah, I think Washington, D.C. was a swamp.
Well, what I mean is, like, when you drain a swamp, like, is there some colloquialism attached to that in terms of, like, how that works? Is there such a thing as draining a swamp, really?
Yes, physically or figuratively?
Well, physically. Like, do people drain swamps?
I think you can, as I say. I think that, I'm sure it's true. Washington, D.C. was built on a swamp, and where Foggy Bottom was was one of the reasons it was called Foggy Bottom, is it was a swamp and there was all kinds of stuff going on, and you drain it, you get rid of it, and you put landfill in, and you. I mean, let me say, somebody asking me about earth moving, it's not exactly my strong point. And look, the swamp is going to remain. The swamp's pretty hardy, and the alligators in it are pretty strong. I mean, Trump talked about term limits, limiting how long somebody could serve in the House or the Senate. I've had everybody from Mitch McConnell to Kevin McCarthy, the number 2 Republican in the House, say that's not going to happen. I mean, it just isn't going to happen.
Right.
So their line is, we have a thing called term limits. It's elections, and if people don't want the person in, they can get rid of them. So, I mean, there's some things he's not going to be able to do. And I think the interesting thing about Trump is, I think because of his nature and because of his bombast, I'm not sure that even his strongest supporters expect or are going to hold him to accounts to keep every promise he makes. I think they kind of think, well, I get the idea, and let's see what happens. And by that I mean, look what he could do in the first 100 days. He could rescind a number of Obama's executive orders, like, for instance, on immigration and deferred deportation. He could appoint a conservative to the Supreme Court. He could toughen up deportation. He could submit tax reform and infrastructure bills and at least begin, although people are saying now it's going to be quite a 2 or 3 year process, repealing and replacing Obamacare. If he did just that, don't you think most of his supporters would feel, well, he's basically kept his side of the bargain?
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I mean, he could do. I mean, in my opinion, he could do half of what he promised, and we would be largely successful.
Yeah. So I think that I don't think people are going to sit there and say, well, he promised X and he didn't do X. He promised he'd build a fence and he'd get Mexico to pay for it. I think most people expect him to build. I don't even know if it's going to be necessarily a wall. It may be a fence. It may be, some of it may be virtual with drones and beefed up. But I think they feel if he really toughens security and has physical barriers to the degree logistically and practically possible on the border, I think most people are going to be satisfied with that and say, well, yeah, that's really what we wanted. I don't think anybody expects Mexico to pay for it. I'd be very surprised at that.
I totally agree. Well, either way, we're going to be watching on Sunday because it's an awesome show, and we always do.
And let me ask this just one question and going, you don't really buy stuff from that store, do you? Yeah, come on.
Yeah, I do, Chris Wallace.
I thought I'd wait to the end.
No, don't get me started on that. Because you know what? It is true, though. Like, if somebody said, I don't know, if somebody asked you, like, whether you really do, something that you say you do on the air. I'm always surprised, though, like, when somebody will ask me, like, do you really do that? I'm like, well, it's weird how they would seemingly be okay.
Well, because people lie.
Yeah, I know.
And we're used to it. We're used to politicians lying. We're used to public figures lying. And so there's kind of a desensitization to it. People kind of expect it. And so I don't know that I think they just sort of think, oh, come on, that's...
Yeah.
We're even talking here about Trump. Not saying he's lying, but is he going to be able to keep all of his campaign promises? Probably not. And so people kind of sit there and go, yeah, you kind of expect it. Anyway.
I guess, yeah. It's just weird that people assume that somebody just is bullying them, and I would never do that. That would be horrible.
Good.
Yeah.
So you hear that, folks?
Take it from Chris Wallace. I'm okay. All right, buddy. Hey, listen, I appreciate you as always. Have fun over there.
You bet.
And we'll be watching on Sunday.
Good. I promise we'll have guests by then.
All right, friend. Thank you.
Bye.
Chris Wallace at Fox News Sunday. It's Common Sense Radio.